I would, if I could, like to start with our educators addressing the topic of how ReSET volunteers can help teachers with the pressures that they have on the science standards of learning. So, Principal Privet, would you be willing to start?
Absolutely. So I'll start with what I was thinking, and then I've been off before I came here, some ideas that I had. But I also have been thinking since we started the conversation about training teachers, and when you said that, I thought, no, that's really it. That is the disconnect. But my first thoughts were, or have been since we've been working in the program this year. I know that you all have been, ReSET has been at our school for a while. There's I don't know, if a disconnect, if you will, or I would like to see more of a connection between what teachers are doing, like more of an annual plan of what teachers are doing in the classroom, and how it's how it's connected to some of the other themes that we're working on. So, for example, when we first met at the beginning, we sat down and talked about what themes the students were working on in language arts, and they try to connect some of those. So the themes could be. I don't know, Mr. Stanley, help me.
Well, our first thing was a healthy body.
Right.
So, we learned about microbes, microorganisms, and things like that. And one of the few classes in my class, I had microscopes of my own, because a lot of the equipment that I have, a lot of other classes don't have, because of my added interest. Mm-hmm. So we tried to, across the curriculum, and put it in science in all subject areas. And it's been quite an experience, because when John first came to my class, he says, they know a lot, because I was working on the scientific method, and a lot of things that he was introducing to them, I had introduced them already. But I can't say that's happening across the board. But I think that that was my own personal interest. And just to see the children when they come in and they do experiments, like we did an experiment on fresh water and salt water. And when we put the salt in the water, well, first we put a ball in the water, and the ball sank. And they looked at us and said, why did it happen? Then we poured salt in the water, and the ball floated. And the first thing they wanted to know was why. Mm-hmm. See, we got to encourage the why, and that makes them dig deep. And so it really made a difference in what we're trying to teach. And we have to have that energy and that forthwith of trying to get it done. And I really enjoy working with John. And what I would like to see is more. When I did the survey, he gave me a survey, and he asked me, what could we do? And I put 3 words: more, more, more. And we have to integrate everything into it, and get like the volunteers. The children need to see other than the teacher, because they get excited when they see other people that they don't know, and that gives them more exposure. Exposure has a lot to do with it too. A lot of children in the area where I work, they don't get exposure, and in this city we have every kind of museum that you can name, and a lot of children here don't get that opportunity. So we have to get them out of the classroom more. And me, myself, I work with the watershed, and just being a country boy, I'm just naturally an outdoor person, scouting all of that. So we have to get the children more exposure to things that they don't know.
Let me just say, too, let me back up and explain where some of my focus is coming from. D.C. Public Schools' major focus this year is literacy, and then that's primary, and then math is secondary. So what tends to happen in our schedule throughout our week, and it's a huge push, the first 2 hours it is mandated that are devoted to literacy only. So then you have about an hour for math in the afternoon, and what teachers typically will do before lunch, and then in the afternoon they'll alternate math and science. But often what happens is science gets pushed to the side. And they do math enough so that we can see some growth and towards the test, but there's not a real connection to how the math or the science will work in their everyday life. And what I'd love to see more of, or if there's a way that we could connect, since literacy is such a big push, what the practical piece that you all do with some of the literacy components. So what they've attempted to do with some of the themes, so each grade level has a different unit theme that changes every 6 weeks. So one grade level, and right now it's a story for all seasons. And so they're so broad that you could fit, and John and I, we all sat down as a group initially trying to figure out how we could work in some of the the volunteer pieces with whatever the unit theme was. And what I'd like to do, I mean, as a principal, is for us to plan it a little bit further out so that we can add more. They can have a richer experience, so each grade level would have an opportunity to have a volunteer. Right now, we're focusing a little more on the higher end, our tested classes. But so that's where I just want to see more of an integration, because it's what's not going to happen for a long time, if ever, is we're not going to have in elementary an isolated time that's revered just for science. It's probably not going to happen because our scores are where they are, and so and the belief that if we can get them to read and be able to do math, then the other will hopefully come. But in the meantime, as you know, the students there's a whole world of things that they don't get exposed to.
I have a question. You mentioned a push for literacy. Exactly what does that involve in the classroom?
So, yeah, but it can. So Mr. Stanley probably explained a lot better because he does it every day. But so we have a 2-hour time block that. So remember, this age level students are learning to read, and so depending on what grade level they're in, so they're learning fluency. The teacher does a component where they do what we call a read aloud, where the teacher reads and they respond with questions, and there's a writing piece to that. So depending on the grade level, it depends on which level of like phonics or what have you they do. However, the books that we're using this year, they've encouraged a lot of nonfiction texts because most of us grew up with fiction. We can all probably name many of the classics we were forced to read, even from elementary on. But now they're focusing on nonfiction text, which is a perfect opportunity for us to integrate science into that.
This allocation of time between reading and math and science, is that throughout all grades?
Yes.
And is it throughout the whole district system?
Pretty much, yes. Yeah, I know in our cluster, our cluster is almost all primarily South. Our superintendent really focuses, and it depends on the superintendent, but generally, yes.
But prior to, so I was there before Ms. Reed came, and I noticed before that we had a lot of emphasis on science. But I think after No Child Left Behind, that changed the emphasis of what we were teaching. And everybody, reading, math. But prior to that, we were more holistic with teaching the children. We taught them everything. And after that, that's changed. The whole dynamics has changed. Yeah. Now, that's not everywhere, because some states chose to kind of not go along with that No Child Left Behind, and they're doing better. And
I didn't know they had the option not to go along with it.
well, I don't think they actually did, but it was underfunded. It was never funded fully.
I think Virginia follows standards of learning. They follow that.
But No Child Left Behind, I thought they objected to it.
I know they,
A lot of
I know they do that
places
so well.
that-
but I
Yes,
don't know.
Victoria, what kind of flexibility do you have in setting the literature program, the choice of materials?
Right.
For example, you could teach in vocabulary, you could augment vocabulary with vocabulary of science.
Right.
Or
Absolutely.
You have
Right.
that flexibility.
We do. So curriculum is where we have
If we could find the right
choice. Yeah.
reading material
Right.
that would integrate science
Right.
and literature, you have a whole new dimension to your program.
Absolutely.
And as long as it meets the standards that you need to meet.
Right. And I think we touched on something here with the idea of the people that are choosing the curriculum are educators. And so with their limited, so we say nonfiction text, and I'm going to be very frank with you. So I'm thinking nonfiction text, how do we get that to our students quickly? So my first thought was, okay, we'll get subscriptions to National Geographic. So from that point, and then from there, then it's I depend on the teachers. But if their experience is limited around science, also, so we don't know. Sometimes we don't know what we don't know, like what to choose and what are some of the best choices. So yes, we do, but we do have flexibility about what we can.
For example, could you read the biography of Thomas Edison?
Yes.
We read it.
Yes.
You do?
Yes, we had.
Or
when we were working with John, we developed vocabulary, science vocabulary.
Exactly.
Every time he comes, we have different vocabularies, and we go back to see if they remember, and they do pretty good with that.
do you have any teaching supplements that are devoted directly to the vocabulary of science?
We have limited.
Very.
Limited.
Would that be something that ReSET could do for you? Provide a kind of a very elementary booklet. A is for atoms, B is for biology, or something like that.
Well, I mean, if you're asking like what I'd like,
I gave John a 4-set book